Okay, so what I want to do now is I just want to make sure that everything is scaling and that everything's basically proportioned and put in the right space, as well as replace some of the content that is in here. So we do have placeholder content. Replacing the content is a little less important than the other stuff. But first, I just want to make sure this is a little bit better. So for instance, notice there's a big gap right here. So when I shrink this, it's not as much of an issue, right? See how it goes like that? But there's a gap there. And so the reason why, and also when I go to shrink these, see how these like kind of collapse onto each other, it kind of loses the gutter information stuff. So the reason why is because we put sizes on these, but now that they have content themselves, we can allow Bootstrap to do it. So we go through. Oh, also these are not as large and stuff as they could be. So I just want to fix some of those things. So to fix some of the scaling issues, I'm going to go through, and before when we were making this originally, I was putting heights on things to make sure there was, because we had just borders. Oh, actually, let's do this first. See the block here? We're not going to need this anymore, so I'm going to take out this block class. I don't think anything even has it anymore. So we're going to take that out first. I don't need to change anything in here quite yet. That's the nav bar. So here's the carousel. But originally, I just had blank squares. Gray squares, the block, and I put a height in there, but now there's a picture, it can just use the picture's height, so I can actually take this out. So I'm going to take that style out, basically on the carousel inner. So if you look, and if we take a gander, I'll hit Control R. So now notice that it doesn't have that gap, right? And it will scale more appropriately. So I need to do the same thing also with the cards here. So these are my cards, CSS class card. And I have this style width 18, whatever. So I'm just going to take that off because I don't need it to have an absolute width size, because that's what's causing it to kind of like stick together, because it's forcing it to be a certain width. So we're going to take those out. I think that actually came with it, but we don't really need that anymore. Also, if we look down here, I had this height also determined on the two articles here, the one with the YouTube video and the other one with the Google Maps. I'd put a height on that as well, and it's just left over from what we did before. So I'm going to take the height off of that, and I can take the height also off of this. And then I think that was it as far as those things are concerned. Yeah, so we're going to save that. And then when we go back here, we'll hit Control R, and now you can see that these things will scale a little bit better. So notice that now it's keeping the gutter because it's not forcing those to be that size. And these are, it's not going to change that much here. It's just going to make the width of our elements, it's going to allow these to basically go a little bit beyond, because before they would overlap a little bit, which is not something I really want. Another thing I want to do too, it's not super important, but I would like this centered, to see how it's aligned to the left, which is fine, but I'd rather it was centered in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and on the footer, just do text align center. It'll just make me feel better, just because I want it to look a little bit nicer. So we're just after this, I'm just going to go ahead and just do footer. Oops, not like that. Footer, and we'll just do text align, and we're just going to center it. And that will just center that bit there. Now, the other thing I need to do is I also need my these things here to be scaled a little bit differently. So currently the way that they are set up is they are taking up 50-50, and I think it'd be better if these were actually not 50-50, if they were taking up more of the space. And then I'm just going to replace this with different content. So I'd like to fix that as well. So what I'm going to do is go in here, and I'm going to go down to this area right here where I have this lorem ipsum, and I'm going to put in basically different text. Okay, so I'm going to grab. I'm just going to put this in myself, but you can actually, you know what we'll do? We'll just delete some of this for now. So I'll just get rid of, let's say, we'll just do this much, right? Because that's kind of a lot of text anyway. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to get rid of a lot of this text just because it feels like too much. Because it was making the paragraphs very long, very tall. And then the other thing we're going to do is I would actually like my images to take up, right now they're 50-50 because we just did COLs. So not my images. I want to make the iframes, we'll start with this one above. I want to make the YouTube video take up more space and the text take up a little less space. So we're going to go ahead and just up on the top here where we have the column, I'm just going to make it my my own size here. So we're just going to do COL dash XL dash 8. So when it's extra large, it's going to take up basically 2/3 because it's going to be 8 out of 12. And then we'll have this one, if that's 8, this one then has to be COL XL dash 4 because it has to equal 4 total. Okay, and so that will make it so that it should be a little bit better. Okay. Okay, then we'll go down here, and I'm just going to basically do the same thing. So we'll do COL dash XL dash 8, and then this one will be COL dash XL dash 4. Okay, and we'll save that. So basically, this will take up 1/8, and the other one will take up or sorry, not 1/8, 2/3, and this will take up the other third. I'm going to save that. We'll go back, go here, and Control R to refresh, and then you can see right now. What you'll notice is this is going here, right? So this has more space, but notice that it's not filling it, and that's because these are just set to basically. I think they're set to an absolute size right now, or they're not. I think we took that out. But they're not being auto adjusted. It's setting up this default size, which doesn't really work for us. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to put in this little bit of code that that will allow us to control, that will basically scale our iframes. Now, normally, if you remember, when we do images, we just add a class called img-fluid. There isn't something like that inside of Bootstrap, at least not that I'm familiar with. So I'm going to make my own. So I'm going to go up to the top here. Try this again. Go up to the top. And we're going to make a make a selector for iframe. So this is going to apply to both of them because we're just going to apply it to all iframes that are inside. And we're going to do this. It's going to be aspect dash ratio, and it's going to be 16/9 because it's 16:9 aspect ratio. That's the typical like video, HD video. So like 1080p is 1920 by 1080. That sort of thing. So we'll do aspect ratio. So it will maintain the aspect ratio. We're going to make the height auto. Okay, so it's going to automatically adjust the height based off of the width, which we're going to make 100%, which means the width will become 100%. Where's the percentage symbol? Why am I? There it is. The width will become 100%. It will maintain that 16:9 aspect ratio, and the height will automatically adjust to whatever the width is. So we'll save that. We're going to go back here, and then we'll hit Control R. And now you can see these are automatically scaling. Now, it might be that you don't want this to be, because typically when you see your Google Maps, right, they're usually in squares. In this case, I am just going to go ahead and make it 16:9 because that way these things line up a little bit better and it looks a little bit nicer. But I am aware that obviously this is normally a square. But then we'll have like a gap down here that I don't really like quite as much. So that's like one of those things. So that looks pretty okay. I was going to actually replace some of this content with new content, but I think I'll just go ahead and do that in the next the next week. So we'll call that good. But everything should now be scaling correctly and more proportioned correctly. So yeah, that will be it.